Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and I'm joined this evening by my co-host Eric Hersey, and he and I are recording this week's episode on Monday, February 12th, the day after the Super Bowl. So, got to be a lot of happy Chiefs fans out there, but also some happy Universal fans as well, given the trailers that ran during that broadcast. So, now, Eric, you were confessing while we were pre-gaming that you did not, in fact, watch the Super Bowl.
No, I did watch the first half. I made it to halftime. That was kind of the thing.
Okay.
So I did get to see, I believe, a couple of the trailers that were referenced here today. But yes, I found myself with a wonderful, nasty cold, and I could make it about halftime. And I said, we'll tap out from there.
Okay.
We got, 3 or 4 or 17 different shots of Taylor Swift in. So my daughter was super happy. So we,
Yeah, I forget who it was today, who said, I was intrigued. That's the first time, Taylor Swift won the Super Bowl. Go figure.
Our local news station put out the big listing as, Taylor Swift and the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl champions, and triggered everyone online, which was fun and joyous. But with my household full of Swifties, we were happy.
Well, good to hear. Now, if I'm being honest here as well, Eric physically watched half the game. I was actually working, but Nancy was watching the game, so I would periodically turn around and monitor the game. So same thing. I saw all of these trailers, these released by Universal Pictures. But the interesting thing is, I would hear about them as they had started on the television, and then in our social media world, 30 seconds in, they would pop up in my social media feed, just because, again, that's the whole point. It's the Super Bowl is supposed to make you aware that these trailers are out there, but then the full trailers show up. And it's an interesting year coming up for Universal. In fact, I was talking with our buddy Jim Schull, and he was talking about how when you look at last year where Universal Pictures was the top earner in Hollywood, it looks like, they're looking to repeat again this year. And so first thing out the door will be Kung Fu Panda 4. That's in theaters next month on March 8th. And how familiar are you with the Kung Fu Panda franchise?
I've seen the first one, and it's been so long ago that I'm thinking to myself, well, I know Jack Black is a big deal in it. I do enjoy it. Now, granted, I'm a huge Jack Black fan, so I am a fan of Jack Black ever since Tenacious D.
Wow, there we go.
So deep cut there, so I've loved him ever since. But I don't recall too much about it, but I'm intrigued. And I know my kids, my son has watched, so it's just a matter of there's 4 of them. So what are we journeying on with the 4th episode? Did we get that information in the trailer?
Largely, again, Poe's adventures continue, but what intrigues me is Kung Fu Panda as a franchise has been around since June of 2008, and mind you, it's been a while since we've had a Kung Fu Panda film in theaters. The last one came out, Kung Fu Panda 3, was January of 2016. Now, in between there, in the theme park realm, we've had, for example, Kung Fu Panda, The Emperor's Quest. That's a 4D film that debuted at the Dreamworks Theater in the upper lot of Universal Studios Hollywood, which, again, we're going to get you to very soon, Eric. And then, of course, at Universal Studios Beijing, they have an entire Kung Fu Panda Land. In fact, it's called the Kung Fu Panda Land of Awesomeness. And there they have a Journey of the Dragon Warrior ride. So this, to me, is the most intriguing part of this because, of course, remember, we've got the Dreamworks Land opening up at Universal Studios Orlando. In fact, I have to ask, did you see the most recent photos that have come out of Universal Orlando in regard to what's going on behind the construction fence there, or?
Yeah, no, actually, I did watch a couple videos maybe a couple weeks ago. I've actually paid quite close attention to that because that was what was intriguing, this whole notion that they're going to open up the Dreamworks Land prior to Epic Universe. So I was kind of seeing what's going on there because let's face it, one of the big tasks here is to figure out when's the right time to go to Universal. And is it one of those things where I want to check it out? So yeah, no, I definitely was checking out. Do they have Kung Fu Panda like properties scheduled to go in there, or is it maybe a meet and greet? Or
I think we're talking meet and greet. I mean, mind you, remember in the old a day in the park with Barney building for a time, they had sort of a super deluxe DreamWorks meet and greet. Now mind you, it was meet and greet circa COVID, so it was one of these things where a DreamWorks character would stand behind you and wave in the distance, right. But they would have 3 of them on stage at any one time, and it was kind of an intriguing idea. And yes, as I understand it, Poe will have, a presence there. But let's be honest, all we know these days is what we can see sticking up out from behind the construction fence. And we have, of course, they're doing wonderful work on Shrek's house. And just this week with the Troller Coaster, did you see the spider that got added? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I did see that the Troller Coaster was happening, and that was super intriguing. This is where I get mad at myself for kind of being bullheaded and not falling into the Universal trap earlier. Is like, I love like the old aspect of like the Woody Woodpecker in that kids land. I'm like, man, if I would have been able to walk around this, and as they destroyed it, so to speak, I'd appreciate what was there. And now it's gone. So I've watched through videos. So I actually did watch a walk along with a YouTuber going through and showing us where the old Barney stuff was prior to putting up the construction wall. So it's super interesting to me.
Good for you. Good for you. Okay, moving to our next trailer. In fact, again, we were pre-gaming as I was describing the trailers we'd be talking about. And you're like, Despicable Me. That was the one about AI, right? And was that John Hamm narrating that from Mad Men?
I didn't catch that. I was, you play on your phone. You're going through Twitter. You're seeing what everybody's saying about things like that. And I just saw this commercial with AI, and I've been sending memes and jokes to my graphic design buddies forever because AI is supposedly going to take all our jobs. But there's the common thing of like, then you'll see the picture of an AI and it's someone's hand and it has 20 fingers shaking because they just can't get it right. And I saw that picture on the screen and I was like, what is this? Hold on. And then they just kept going and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. Yep. So I was the whole Minions being behind it all. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that was pretty great. I actually scored that commercial pretty high.
Well, but that's what's kind of intriguing about it. This was literally a commercial that ended with saying, oh, by the way, the Despicable Me trailer for Despicable Me 4 is out there. You got to give Universal Marketing, high marks for that. Just the whole notion of, hey, we don't even need to show you the trailer. We'll just tell you the trailer's out there. But speaking of which, though, again, Despicable Me 4 arrives in theaters July 3rd of this year, and it's been a while since the last Despicable Me movie. Despicable Me 3 came out in June of 2017. Now, mind you, in the interim, 2 years ago, we got Minions Rise of Gru in July of 2022, and since then, of course, we've gotten the Minions Land with the Villain Con Minion Blast attraction. That opened in August of last year, but over in Beijing, again, we were just talking about Journey of the Dragon Warrior ride, they got an entire Minions Land and not kind of the after the fact retrofit that we got in Orlando. I mean, they got, for example, the Minions coaster, the Loop-de-Doop-de, and the Super Swirly ride. So, and then the other trailer that got a lot of notice last night was Twisters, all right, which is coming out July 19th from Universal Pictures. And I wonder, Eric, if this is the record for the longest distance between sequels, because the original Twister, came out May of 1996. In fact, I when I saw that for the first time, I saw that, dear Lord, at the Downtown Disney, the AMC there. And do you remember this at all? The Helen Hunt film?
No, I know
Bill
of it.
Paxton?
I can picture the VHS tape right now. I don't know if I ever saw it, but
Oh, no.
let's be real. 96, I might have and just
Okay.
never noticed. But I mean, obviously, there's like the flying cow, isn't a cow taken up? That's like the memory that I have.
Well, now it's so interesting you bring that up because there was, on the heels of this hugely successful film, an attraction at Universal Studios Florida, the Twister Ride It Out, and in your homework, have you ever watched this one yet? The indoor, where they recreated an actual tornado inside of a building.
No, but I'm familiar with what they replaced it with because I was a big Conan O'Brien fan. So during the time, so I was huge into the show and then had that love-hate relationship with them afterwards. So I was very much like, all right, when they opened it up, I'm like, they gave Conan a little nod in the queue.
They did.
But
They did. Yeah.
This is what the Jimmy Fallon ride.
Yeah, and what's absolutely fascinating is if you think about it, this year we have the new Ghostbusters film coming out, and we also now have this Twisters sequel. And what's been so funny is longtime Universal fans who, of course, remember the Ghostbusters attraction that was in this building prior to Twister Ride It Out are now suggesting, especially on the heels of Jimmy Fallon having some issues slightly, the whole nation of, hey, wouldn't it be interesting to have you guys circle back on a ride that you've done previously? So, and then we get to the trailer that seems to have had the biggest bang for the buck, and that was Wicked. And again, understand this is Wicked Part 1 that arrives in theaters November 27th of this year. So did you get to see that one?
I did. This is, now mind you, I'm not sure. I didn't check the ratings or what kind of news was. I imagine there was a lot of football fans that were, Swifties, as I would call them. And when they saw Ariana Grande in this, they all kind of went crazy because at least that's what my 13-year-old daughter did. So I did see this and I had no idea until she says, look, and so forth. And I'm like, what is this? Then I recognize the soundtrack. I'm not too familiar with Wicked, but enough. So yeah, I was intrigued by this and we did see that. And then my wife was like, Thanksgiving, like that's a long time to advertise. I'm like, hey, there's only one Super Bowl. If you're going to do the Super Bowl commercial, you have to do it now, even if you're going to release in Thanksgiving.
But I think you actually nailed it in one. I mean, the notion of the number of young women who were probably tuning in to Super Bowl 58. Deliberately because, Taylor was there. Oh, that's genius to drop the Wicked Part 1 trailer then, knowing that many young women will be watching this.
Oh, we all but, I mean, it's all but embraced in, my daughter's brain, and that's a movie that she's going to drag us to the theaters to see. And that's kind of hard to do in this day and age because, I mean, this is the Disney Plus era. We just saw the Marvels on Disney Plus on February 7th. We didn't see it in theaters because guess what? We said, oh. So, this is the notion of my daughter now saying, oh, we want to go see this in the theater. So that's kind of genius on their part. I'm sure it cost a lot of money, but it was kind of genius.
Yeah. And now, what's kind of interesting is, Universal genuinely hopes that this and the part 2, which by the way, we already have a release date for part 2. That's November 26th, 2025. So they're literally 1 year apart. But Universal Universal wants this to be a massive hit film because, well, first of all, this is something they own outright. The Broadway production of Wicked was actually produced by Universal Stage Productions. It's theirs, whole and clear. That they tried it out in San Francisco back in May of 2003, and the Broadway run started in October of that same year in the Gershwin Theater. And Eric, this right now is the second highest grossing Broadway musical in history. Only Disney's The Lion King has made more money. So,
That's insane. That's quite impressive. I would have not guessed that.
Yep. And by the way, it's worth noting that Universal has already brought Wicked into one of its theme parks. I don't know. In fact, you can actually go on YouTube right now and look at this. But if you go to Universal Studios Japan, they had, and in fact, they showed it in the Emerald Theater at that theme park. They had a cut down version of Wicked that ran in that park from July of 2006 through January of 2011. Now, mind you, it was only 35 minutes long, and I want to say the Broadway musical is 2.5 hours, which again is one of the reasons why they had the luxury of cutting it into 2 films. My understanding is when they're done here, and when you watch Wicked back to back, it's going to be an over 3-hour long saga. But yeah, this is something that Universal would love to be a massive hit and would love to bring into the parks because again, they own it. But
right.
So anyway, that just wanted to acknowledge it at the top of the show that just yesterday with the Super Bowl and Universal was a big presence, and so hope you folks got to see those same trailers. And speaking of you folks, before we plunge on with the rest of the show, I honestly want to thank all of you who reached out after our first episode. I won't lie to you, Eric and I were a little concerned about the premise of the show starting out, the whole notion of, one of the underlying themes of the show is, of course, getting the Hersey family ready for their very first trip to Universal Orlando. A longtime Disney fan, gonna go check out a Universal park, and we were a little concerned, is this gonna work? Is that people are gonna get behind this? And we got so many nice notes, from folks and who, just love the idea and who are very much actually like Eric. What was that phrase? Universal curious was
right.
That?
Right.
I love that. I love that.
Yes, I think Royal posted on, I think, the Patreon and said perfect for an audience of Universal curious.
There we go.
I think that was a great term.
Yeah.
And there was several others. So I want to thank everybody else very easily. And I very easily could be crucified still. The fact is I've only seen one Kung Fu Panda and I didn't watch all of the Super Bowl, but we appreciate your guys' support.
No, absolutely. I think, again, it was so nice to get that sort of reaction. It was so nice to get the suggestions so far that we've gotten, which we'll be sharing at an upcoming show. All right. Now, okay. So, again, we had the Super Bowl trailers, and I'm blanking. Was there something else we should be talking about here in regard
Jim,
to?
I think it was just a slow news week. It's just, there's nothing going on at all. I mean, nothing came out. I think on the 30th. Nothing at all.
You're right. Okay. All right. We're teasing you. I know. All right. I mean, given the fact that this podcast is called the Epic Universal Podcast, yeah, we do have to talk about the amazing giant tidal wave of info that came out about the Epic Universe on January 30th. Normally anybody else, something like this, you get a piece of concept art, maybe 2. So to get that full video and all of that art, what were your thoughts?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. Now, granted, I really do think this, I think Len said it on your guys' podcast a couple weeks ago that there's only been, 8 theme parks opened in the United States.
There we go.
Since 1955, right? And I counted them out. I actually wrote it down. I'm like, is that right? And so in this case, it's actually the first theme park I'm actually going to witness as a fan because, I started really the fandom in 2014, so I've never seen anything like this. I've seen opening of lands, and I've seen opening of rides and attractions, but this was a full-fledged land, so I'm not sure what it was like when they opened, Islands of Adventure or this or that, but from the likes of it, you're saying, a couple concept arts here and so forth, but this was like, a 7-minute video?
Oh, yeah.
Flyover.
Yep.
All types. Now, One thing that I was wondering, Jim, now it sounded like this was like the first time that they're announcing all of the lands. Was this all, up until this point, was the only land that we knew for sure that was announced was Mario, and everything else was just kind of like suggested?
Well, all right. Now, I want to take a moment here to acknowledge that, and again, that all good things, come from Alicia Stella and BioReconstruct.
Right.
Those two folks have been doing yeoman's work when it comes to Epic Universe from site clearing on forward. And, Alicia, the Permit Princess, it's always been first with names and concepts of attractions and that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, I have friends at Universal Creative. I mean, but the problem is, in order to protect folks, look, and again, this is one of my hard and fast rules. Look, nobody, no matter how juicy a story is, and how amazing a scoop is, it's never worth somebody losing their job over. And that's the thing. Universal Creative is a teeny tiny shop. I mean, certainly compared to Imagineering. Though that's gotten kind of teeny over the past 10 years or so as well. But that's the thing. Alicia does it the hard way. She drills down into permits and that sort of thing. So we have known a lot about this place thanks to those two. But what was interesting is to have Universal, itself, produce this 7-minute thing. And the other thing, really, you got to understand about Mark Woodbury is he was the head of Universal Creative for years before he then became the chairman and CEO of Universal Destinations and Experiences. So he's been on the other side of the fence. It's like, right. I have all of this cool art. I have all of these cool models. And the people in the corner office are like, no, we can't talk about this yet. And so how cool for him after all of those years of having other people sort of, put a clamp on the fire hose. It's like, well, you can only put out this much info, and to do what they did. Just to be fair here, we spent a lot of time talking about the entrance of the park and then the heart of the park. And by the way, I wanted to ask, what did you think of that, the notion of putting the park back in theme park?
I guess in this aspect, there's a lot of greens, right? And that's kind of where they're going with. And, I saw a lot of comparison to the unveiling of Epcot's green area. And I think that is perfectly fine, from an entrance. And I think this is what I saw on a lot of YouTube. A lot of people were getting these giant, what do they call it? Like, it's the beam, or it's Kronos. It's Kronos. It's like which I know is like the god of time or something, I recall. So they were getting these beams, and they're all getting these, and it's and there were so many unboxing videos I've seen. I was like, that is brilliant marketing. Yeah. So this video was kind of focusing on the green area, the celestial park, so to speak. And I imagine they're going to go further and further, because even on the YouTube video, it was said the first installment. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be great, because I die for these videos. I love them. I absolutely love these unveilings. These are things that I watch. Yeah, for the old parks, the old planning videos. This is stuff I love. So this 7-minute video was like heaven for me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But in the quick fly-throughs, that sort of thing, any one particular land or aspect of the park you're intrigued by, or?
Oh, I'm super intrigued by the classic monsters. I tell you that. I mean, granted, love Mario. And love everything about some of these other aspects, but I super thrilled by the classic monsters. I don't know what about it. I mean, my favorite attraction in general is Haunted Mansion, so I like the creepy, eerie stuff. But I just kind of like the thought of vampires and Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I'm excited about that aspect. But this overall park looks real. It looks different. It feels different. Overall, I'm very excited to see how this comes about and to get, these 7-minute YouTube videos talking more and more and more about it, to the point by the time they open, you're going to know enough about it. You're going to be really jazzed up. The marketing has really got you pumped. People like myself are thinking right now, all right, when can we buy tickets? When can I stay in the giant, the Helios Tower?
Now, what's kind of intriguing, again, the two moderate hotels at the edge of property, and I'm blanking their names. I want to say one is the Selenova. Now, what's kind of interesting, and there's a lot of people who are sort of reading the tea leaves here. Those two hotels, you can book rooms now. I want to say one is opening in January of 2025, and the other is opening in the following month. And there are a number of folks who are suggesting, if you think about, you get them open for a couple of weeks so the staff gets prepped. But that kind of insinuates that the park will at least begin soft opening February, March. So we may have to talk about some travel plans here. And speaking of travel plans, if we're going to be traveling, we'll want to take advantage of the nice folks at Touring Plans. And by the way, the Epic Universal podcast is brought to you by Touring Plans. Touring Plans helps you save time and money at theme parks like Walt Disney World. So please go check them out at touringplans.com. All right, so let's see. I think it might now be time to, and in fact, I love that so many people responded to this segment and really enjoyed it. And again, this is your baby, Eric. So news or not. So why don't we start to dig through the pile here?
Sure. Well, this week, Jim, you and I put our heads together. I have some stories throughout. We're taken since our last episode from last month. So there's some stories that are towards the end of January, and we have some more recent one here. But really, at the end of the day, I pull it up and I say to myself, is this something that we should worry about or not? So we're going to pull some information here. So first things first, I've heard a million different things. I've heard about the wand experiences at Universal. I don't know much about it. But it sounds to me like Orlando Park Stop released a story on the 24th that is talking about updated Harry Potter wand experiences coming. So my first question, what exactly are these? I know of, you go and you get your wand and you customize and so forth. But what are these things? Is it kind of like the card game at the Magic Kingdom when you used to go and show your card and fight things, or is it?
Actually, yes. That's a very apt parallel. Because remember, what was interesting about the card game at Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom was it would make use of underutilized corners of the kingdom. There would be windows in storefronts or, places between buildings where, you could go and do battle with Hades or whatever. And what was intriguing about, now remember, they had, when the Wizarding World first opened in 2010, one of the things that people kind of lost their minds over was Ollivanders. And the thing of it is that it was this teeny tiny intimate experience that they and again, I know you haven't seen a lot of the Harry Potter movies, but I've
seen the first one.
Okay, so you remember the Ollivander scene where
I do,
where
yes.
the wand chose Harry, and you had that amazing effect with the lights and the wind blowing up his hair and that sort of thing. They do that in real life. I mean, in fact, I cannot sell this more strongly. It is one of the most magical thing, literally, I've ever experienced in a theme park. They take, I want to say it's a smaller group. It might be 18. It might be as many as 24. But, they take you into this tiny little room that is wands going up like 15, little racks of wands around you. And you have, this wizard that is, muggles, it's just sort of like, going through the motions until he pauses, and it's like, they always pick like one child out of the group, and he suddenly he just zeroes in on that, you come here. He senses something special out of the child, and he begins to select the wand for them. And so, he pulls, reaches up for a high shelf and pulls out a wand and explains it, and, got a unicorn feather in its core and that sort of thing, and gives it the child to use, and the child does a spell and it goes horribly wrong. And it's like, okay, not that one. Hang on. Give me your, and they do this twice. And then finally, He hands the child the wand, and they get the Harry Potter moment. The music rises up, the light. Again, you're in the room. I've been in the room. I still don't know how they do the lighting. I still don't know how they do the wind effect. But you see this child just sort of swept up in the magic, and then it's like, oh well, okay. I'm so happy to have done this. And that it hands them their wand. Now, mind you, they hand them the wand and then discreetly tell the parents, oh, by the way, that's going to be $40.
Right.
And you got to go out and buy it. But this became the premier experience, and people would line up outside for hours, standing in the blazing Central Florida sun to get the chance to do this, which is why brilliant move when they opened Diagon Alley. They created yet another Ollivanders, only over there it's kind of like the Meet Mickey thing, where if you're not paying attention, it's like there's actually 3 of them here, but we're every one of us thinks we're having the solo experience, and and that took a lot of the heat off of the one over in Hogsmeade Village. But right after that, they introduced these interactive wands, and again, circling back to what they did with Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, they would put things in storefront windows or in corners, and there'd be a brass marker on the ground, and so you'd stand there with your interactive wand, and you'd stand on the brass marker, and you would have an actual map, and that would show you would tell you the spell and the gesture you're supposed to make with your hand. And you would see things come to life in the windows. And, and the other thing that's absolutely fascinating about this, and I think as somebody who loves theme park history as much as you do, it was like creating a new attraction in the land.
Right.
Because of the number of people who would queue up to do this. I want to say there were 12 of them over at Hogsmeade, and I want to say an additional 10 at Diagon Alley. And when you figure you have that many people standing at 24 different places waiting for their chance to do it, it's literally like you created another ride. So I guess what's interesting about this is the notion of, okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean, you're creating a new set of wands and, because again, the language here is updated Harry Potter wand experiences. So are we creating new vignettes? And are these all going to be like the previous ones in windows and storefronts, or are there going to be other opportunities? And if so, where? Very, very much looking forward to what goes on here.
Right. And I could see that if it's a new wand. I mean, I know how it goes with magic bands, that you have yourself a nice brand new magic band, and you buy that, and then they come out with a new version, and then the entire family wants these new versions, so that way they can play with the 50th statue. So, I mean, there's a good line item there that if it's $40, maybe these are $60, $70, $80. And so I can see between just the, notion. So this could be a win-win. So you think that's some actual news that we have here?
No, that's actual news, and I just apologize to all of the parents out there who, as you just mentioned, that the trip to Universal got that more expensive. Though, also our next news item, they're going to have a new place they can go to buy these wands, right?
Yeah, and this one's a difficult one because there's some names in here that I'm not going to be able to pronounce. So I always cue myself up here, but there's a mischief-managed, a limited-time Harry Potter pop-up shop appears at Universal CityWalk. So, not super familiar at all, but I'm like, all right, this is a question to ask for Jim. Oh, Mia Fora Mina and Eduardo Lima? What do you say?
Well,
right?
No. First, you did great. And more to the point, I love these people. They're the ones who created basically the graphic look of the Harry Potter films. I mean, for example, the whether it's handbills or the wanted poster for Sirius Black or that sort of thing, they're the ones who did it. They gave it that wonderful off kilter, old style printing look. And so, when they've previously done Potter fan events, Potter weekends at the parks. These two have been there, and lovely people who do great work. And so the fact that they're getting their own pop-up store, this is news. The downside is, again,
okay,
you're going to walk in, and if you're a Potter fan, you're going to walk out much poorer, but you're going to have an amazing pieces of art and some very cool books and all that sort of stuff. But no, this is news. This is definitely news. So.
All right. See, I would have put that one. I was like, it's a throwaway. I don't even know what this is, but this is where it comes in handy. Like, this is something super exciting. Just from you talking about it makes me feel like, all right, so this is like a Momente More.
There we go. There we go.
Because that's a shop that I'm like, this is amazing, but it's a throwaway for somebody that it's not in the know. So that's quite fantastic. Well, that's very exciting. So this next one, I know, got me kind of excited. I know it would get my brother and his wife super excited because they're big Zelda fans. So there's a long-rumored Zelda world, Universal Studios. It seems to be, it's not a sure thing, but I guess there was a video that was produced and then deleted. And I get this off GamesRadar.com, but essentially they're talking about a Zelda land. So, Jim, what do you know about a Zelda land? Rumors about a Zelda land? Is there anything, has this been talked about before? But I know there's a lot of Zelda fans out there, and they're leaning heavily into Nintendo. What do we think?
Well, all right. Here's the thing. Look, we know that there's a Donkey Kong land coming to Universal Hollywood. We know, something similar for Japan. We certainly know that the Super Mario Brothers movie was hugely successful for Universal last year, and there is a sequel being prepped. Universal is definitely leaning into Nintendo. The problem here is that if we're talking stateside, where would this go? It's an interesting question for Orlando. It's an interesting question for Hollywood. And when I reached out to friends at Universal Creative, they're like, look, in 10 years, sure. All right. Right now, it's just when you look at how full, what's going on at Universal now, think about it. You got Vegas. You got, the thing in Frisco, Texas. You got the UK thing we were just talking about. You have, of course, Epic Universe in Florida. Now, mind you, you do also have Comcast, which flat out says, we love the theme park business. We're aggressively, investing in this. So do I expect to see Zelda show up at the Universal parks? Absolutely. Anytime soon? No.
So we're thinking maybe Zelda's more of a rumor.
No, well, I mean, I would argue that it's come up enough time, and the word has come out from people who are in the know, that again, it's kind of a gimme, but it's not an immediate gimme, and
right. Let's get the theme park open first, right?
There we go. So.
Hey, Jim, do you think you would get a monster makeover at Universal Studios Florida? Because that's kind of what they're doing now. They say a monster transformation. It's almost like a face paint situations going on. I have an article here from the Orlando Informer that gave us a nice review of the monster makeover. Have you seen that?
I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror and I'm halfway there anyway.
Oh.
I did.
You charge yourself $60.
There we go. It's like, don't get me wrong. That sounds like a lovely idea, especially in that time between August and November when they do Halloween Horror Nights.
Right.
Well, again, I'm happy that somebody who studied makeup now has a paying gig. But on the other hand, do I want to do this? No. Again, I'm ugly enough as is. We can move on. So,
yeah. I would say, it looks to me like it would be fun for my 6-7-year-old. I don't know if I could deal with it. I see a lot of those shops and I'm thinking to myself, we once did a henna tattoo for my daughter and she immediately wanted to go swimming afterwards. And I'm like, do you understand how this works? We spend all this money and now it's gone. So I don't know. But that is happening for those out there, out and about. Mm-hmm. Jim, I'll let you pick the next story. Pick a juicy one.
Well, This kind of breaks my heart because I'm such a Simpson fan, and I so enjoyed the Simpsons ride. In fact, again, if this is true about Simpsons, potentially shutting down early at the Universal parks, again, because of Disney. Well, first of all, again, Eric, we'll need to get you to this ride immediately because...
Right. I'm on my way now.
The epic, the Universal's Simpsons ride is an equal opportunity offender. It makes fun of SeaWorld. It makes fun of Disney. It makes fun of, Universal, of course. In fact, the thing I think you would love the most about the Simpsons ride, and again, I don't know if you've seen any of the videos. At one point, Marge and Homer are on the Captain Dinosaur ride, which is basically Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, only with dinosaurs. Dressed up as pirates, mind you. But the thing of it is, it's put together by somebody who clearly loves the pirate ride because it's Marge and Homer going backwards through the attraction. So if you're paying attention, it's like, I know this room in the ride. Oh, my God. But yeah, it is so fun. It is so smart. It is, and if you know the show at all, it has so many lovely nods to the show, and I will just be sad to see it go. But again, I was also sad to see the Back to the Future ride, which I love Star Tours, but I would argue the original Back to the Future, especially since it kept putting you in smaller and smaller groups of people until when there were only 8 of you getting on the DeLorean. It was such an intimate experience, and then on an epic scale. So, yeah, I don't get me wrong. I have a daughter who loves Pokemon, and in fact, I remember to this day when she was, her mother and I had split, and Alice was living in Hawaii with her mom, and I would get on the phone every night at 11 o'clock to talk with my daughter, and she was into Pokemon, and I had to study Pokemon like the periodic table, so I would be able to talk with Alice. So it's like, well, yes, Charmander, who turns into Charizard,
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So
I'm in that boat right now, Jim.
There we go.
My 17-year-old loves it, and my 7-year-old, he's all about it. So they're all also ultimately trading cards as we speak, and telling one not to rip off the other one. It's quite amazing. And I mean, I miss that, but
okay.
At this point in time. So that is the rumor that they're saying that.
Well, now think about it.
Pokemon is going to replace.
Think about it. We just had in the past 5 years or so, we had Pokemon Go. So imagine going to a theme park where you whip out your phone and there are Pokemon that only exist at that theme park. And more to the point, that ride system that powered Back to the Future, the ride, that powered The Simpsons, it's a really sturdy, system. And so, the notion of, using that to take people into the world of Pokemon, it's like, oh, that's a brilliant idea.
That'll get us to buy tickets tomorrow. I'll just tell you that is okay. So that is the situation there.
So, but again, long story short, it would make me sad to see it happen. But again, if we can get you in there before it closes and take you to Moe's and get you a flaming Moe, I mean, or take you over to Krusty Burger and get you a Clogger, again, I will be happy if we can get you in there before it closes, because they did a beautiful job recreating the world of The Simpsons, and I will be sorry to see it go. So,
Jim, I think we probably should do at least one more, and I think it's Universal Studios Hollywood to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Super Nintendo World.
Yes.
Now, have you seen this?
I'm kind of intrigued by two aspects of this. I mean, first of all, we have some special 1-year anniversary stuff. For example, a power-up band. Is that correct?
Right. And tell you the truth, Up until now, I was just pulling up the sites here and going over it once before we pulled up. I wasn't even aware what this power band was, and I started watching the video, and I got super impressed and intrigued because the whole notion of jumping around and earning coins like you were Mario, I'm like, oh man, this is fantastic. So that got me really excited. So I just learned that what this power-up band was, so there is aspect there, but it looks like there's some other anniversary kind of items.
Well, the other thing I think that they're doing that's brilliant, at least out in Hollywood, is the notion of, I mean, face it, the Super Nintendo World is on the bottom, the lower lot. And, as people are coming back up, at the end of the day, and it's like, oh, I really had fun there, and I wish I'd gotten food or that sort of thing. And we now have, what is it, the Power Up Cafe, right, on Universal Plaza. Either on your way down, you can get a treat before you get on the Starcade. I want to say the world's longest escalator to take you down to the lower lot, or on your way out if you want a treat. You can bop in there and get that. So I think that's a smart move on their part. And more to the point, given how hugely successful, Super Nintendo World has been for Hollywood, I think it makes sense, that they lean into the anniversary and celebrate it. And more to the point, I would imagine a lot of folks who've had fun there over the past year will want some of this limited edition merch. So kind of a win-win. All right. Well, okay. So now we have touched on the topic of Nintendo and Super Mario. And after the break, Eric and I are going to talk a bit about the history of Nintendo and how they ended up in the Universal theme parks around the globe. But first, this.
And we're back. And, Jim, I was actually stumbling around online. There's this website that I know of. It's called jimhillmedia.com. You ever hear of it?
Don't listen to that guy. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So what I was looking for, and I was kind of surprised because I actually looked on YouTube and all over the place. I was like, all right, so how did Nintendo actually get with Universal? And I was really surprised. There was not a ton of information out there on this, but I did find an article back in 2015 that was talking about kind of the expansion, and it was to create the world's first ever theme park attraction based on Nintendo's beloved games and characters. So this was May 7, 2015, and essentially it was just a press release talking about coming out of Japan and Orlando, talking about them getting together. So my whole thought process, okay, so they're just talking about it then. When did it actually happen? And it looks like in November of 2016, that wonderful website again released Universal Parks and Resorts and Nintendo will bring the fun of Nintendo to life with expansive, highly themed environment at Osaka and Orlando and Hollywood. So this is the actual announcement. It wasn't just a thought. So my whole thought process here was, Jim, I wasn't paying attention in 2015, 16. How did this all come about? Essentially, you were the one that was right in the thick of things covering all this. What do you remember from 2015, 2016, and how did Nintendo and Universal make this deal?
Well, what's kind of intriguing about this is a lot of what drove, these two companies together was what we were talking about on the first half of today's show, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, that, the Universal had discovered much to its delight that, don't get me wrong, creating an immersive version of the Harry Potter world, one that, and let's be clear here, one that specifically embraces the look of the films that Warner Brothers had produced. And that meant, for example, involving Stuart Craig, who was a production designer for the films, and, having a guy who was used to building, only the parts of the set that the camera saw, and the notion of, well, what's behind me, or what's the roof look like, or what's the ceiling, and understanding how ridiculously expensive that was. But at the same time, when you built places like the Three Broomsticks or the Hoghead's Tavern, and you had people standing in 3-hour long lines for butterbeer, it's like, okay, all right, I get this. This is something, let's find another Potter. And let's face it, if you're someone who's been paying attention in entertainment and looked at how much of discretionary entertainment spending is now being spent on gaming versus, say, or movies or television or even streaming, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's like, okay, they love Mario, they love Zelda, they love Pokemon. We should be in this space. And so now, mind you, you have to understand that this is 2015, 2016, you're having these conversations. And what was lucky for Universal was in this same window of time is when Universal Japan's version of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter was opening. So you could take the Nintendo executives and it's like, okay, picture this, but with Mario. And it's like, okay.
Right.
All right. I get that. All right. It wasn't necessarily all that hard to sell. And more to the point, they could also open the books and show them how well they were doing. And also remember, very, very deep down in these press releases, you'd read things to the effect of, oh, yeah, and we're going to try to make some movies. And so, we finally saw the first of those films last year, and it did land off its business. But, now, I won't lie. Universal Creative was challenged trying to figure out how to translate Nintendo games into theme park spaces, because they are just so crazy vivid, but they are also so crazy stylized. And, the fans of this world, of these games, they have things they want to see. They have things they want to experience. And it took a while to sort of break the back of, well, what ride system will allow us to replicate that game experience? And so again, there's a reason it took us from 2000, announcement in 2015, a sort of a formal announcement in 2016, and then, well, geez, the poor folks at Universal Studios Japan, they were supposed to open, and then COVID happened in 2020, and that got delayed for a bit. But here we are today with a successful thing. And but by the way, I just want to throw this out there, because there's always been the story about Disney. Disney didn't have a response to Harry Potter. In fact, they let it get away. They had the first shot at doing it at a theme park, and they blew, their negotiation with JK, and then Universal came in, and then, here's, the first Wizarding World opens in June of 2010, and Disney has nothing to respond, and that's why they turned around and bought Lucasfilm. That it's like, how do we respond to this? It's like, okay, well, the only other franchise that's out there, film franchise that's as strong and has a vivid world and lots of characters, is Star Wars. So you buy a Lucasfilm and you bring them into a theme park. But now the entire themed entertainment industry, when they saw this deal go down, especially after Disney had bought Lucas, and it's like, boy, Galaxy's Edge had better be huge, because how are they going to respond to when Universal starts opening Nintendo-themed lands? And this past week, and I apologize, I'm blanking the name of the individual who reached out through social media who shared this insight with me, but think about it. Just last week, with the earnings call, we learned that, the Walt Disney Company has, bought a $1.5 billion share in Epic Games. Do you know what Epic Games is involved in?
Well, yeah, I personally do, because I've spent a lot of money on V-Bucks for my son over the years. This is the creator of what, Fortnite?
There we go. All right. So if, in fact, You have a Disney company that's sort of staring down the barrel of, well, how do we respond to, Nintendo properties popping up in the Universal parks, and the fact that we have families, parents who gamed, who now have kids and they game with their kids. They play the Mario games. And it's like, how do you respond to that? And the notion that Fortnite can... Now, I have to ask, knowing this, again, what you've done with your son and that sort of thing, is there, could you see them being that experience being translated to a theme park?
I could see it being a theme park, possibly. I mean, it's a game with guns, so it's pretty far-fetched from what we would see typically with Disney. I mean, there's opportunities there. I was thinking, truth be told, the whole Mario acquisition for Universal is going to be a huge game changer. And there's multiple reasons. Number one, I have a couple family members that want nothing to do with theme parks whatsoever. When they heard I was going to Disneyland, they were like, are you going to Super Mario Land? They were willing to go with us just to go to Mario.
Wow.
There's people, they're willing to go to Mario. And this is the thing, Jim. Right now, if you ask me Mario or Mickey Mouse, now I love myself some Disney and I wear Mickey Mouse all the time, but I spent way more time with Mario through my years than I ever did with Mickey Mouse. And I think we might not know Mario as that voice and so forth. We didn't maybe watch as many cartoons or so forth, but we played hours and hours and hours. And we're all now with, taking our kids, and our kids have been playing because the Wii came out in 2006. And since that period of time, there's been lots of, Mario Kart, all these games. Mario is going to be a game changer for them in many aspects. And I'm sorry, the Fortnite craze has been around for a while. It just can't compete, in my opinion. It's just going to be really difficult to say, hey, we're going to have some type of Fortnite. I'm not sure what property Disney could get a hold of right now to compete against what I think Mario is going to do.
I have to tell you, I hear the exact same thing from a lot of themed entertainment professionals. Now, mind you, these very same people talk about some of the Nintendo properties just do not lend themselves to theme park, being translated into a themed experience, something that you can put 2,400 people through an hour. But at the same time, that's not saying that there isn't technology coming over the hill that could potentially make this possible. It's always fascinating to have friends who go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas strictly, because they're looking for things that they could potentially use in a theme park attraction. They will literally walk the floor and look at every new gizmo, and it just sort of like, oh, that I can use. There are advances being made in technology every day. And in fact, think about what we just talked about at the top of our news segment this week, the enhanced, the expanded wand experience coming to the Universal parks. I guess the upside of it is that given the $60 billion that Disney has supposedly pledged to upgrading parks and adding capacity and this sort of thing, and the fact that they are reacting the way they are to Universal, I mean, we're all going to win this.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, I saw something. This might be cutting because it was just released today, and I'm not sure if you saw this. Did you see some of the Universal tweets that were going out that had their globe and so forth pixelated, and then it would come into vision?
Oh, no. Okay.
So I didn't think anything of it, and then I saw someone on Twitter say, if this is Minecraft, that's a 1-2 punch.
Oh.
And I'll tell you what, right now, Pokemon, Mario, Minecraft, I'm not sure if that's the case. Man, this is going to be really exciting for everyone that loves themed entertainment, because this is going to be a battle like no other.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's send folks out the door looking for those images then. So, all right. Now, again, folks, just want to thank so many of you who reached out and said how much you enjoyed having the show back, and particularly this take on this. And again, before we head out the door, I just want to share, a few nice things that folks said. We, of course, we mentioned Royal Robinson at the top of the show, who said, "Love this new podcast and great podcast here, perfect for the Universal curious." And again, we have Allison F, and who said, "This is awesome. My situation is similar to Eric. I'm a huge Disney fan, over 40 trips in my 36 years. And I've only spent 2 days at Universal, and I only went because it was forced upon me during 2 high school marching band trips. Normally have no interest in Universal, but ever since hearing about Epic Universe, I'm very curious. So can't wait to hear everyone's advice, and we will be sharing that soon." But Eric, looking back now, let's talk about that first show.
The first show, it was scary at first because I was really sure I was like, these people are going to attack me, because even things I say today is like, I've only seen one Harry Potter. I've only seen so forth. So I do want to ask everyone's opinion here. This is the thing is, and I don't know if I shared this, but before we went to Disney and back in 2014 or so, I watched every single animated movie with the kids. It was just like, we're going to watch them all. I found them from a library, found all types. So if I was going to start watching Universal films right now, what should I start with? What should be the order? Should it be Harry Potter? Should I complete that series? Should we go after the Minions? I mean, we got a lot to choose from here. So hit me up on Twitter and let me know if, up until the next show, and I will watch whatever you guys send. If it universally comes through and says, everybody, I need to watch all the Jaws movies, I will shake my fist in anger at you guys because I'm terrified of them, but I will watch them. So give me your suggestions. What should I be watching?
Wow, that's interesting. But again, folks, we would love to hear from you about the show, what you want to hear about the parks, and anything else Universal related. I mean, that's why we talked about the trailers at the top of the show. Anyway, again, Eric, I'm sorry I derailed you there. We're asking where we could find you online.
Yeah, just Eric Hersey on Twitter or Instagram, EricHersey. Mm-hmm. And where can we find you, Jim?
Let's see. I am on Twitter or X, whichever you prefer, and Facebook as Jim Hill Media, and I want to say Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. But if you really, really, really want to get a hold of me, I guess that's jim@jimhillmedia.com. Let's see. Also, it would also really help us out here, folks, if you would head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. We want to find some more Universal fans, and and as Mr. Hersey keeps telling me, cracking that algorithm is the best way to grow the show. And as somebody who failed, I took Algebra 2 twice, so technically I took Algebra 4. Algorithms scare me. So, but anyway.
All right, Jim, this has been a great time, and I say let's do it again.
I agree. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening, folks, and we will see you on the next show.